My name is Scott Schmidt. I am one of the bootcamp pros on the Devlin Peck team. I went through the Devlin Peck bootcamp myself and landed some roles, and now I'm excited to be I'm glad to have joined the Devlin Peck team to help other folks out in their instructional design endeavors. So, Shawn, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself real quick?
For sure. Hey everyone, my name is Shawn and I am an instructional designer and a bootcamp pro on Devlin's team. Just like Scott, I did go through the bootcamp, and I'm really excited to co-host on this workshop because I think as an instructional designer, probably storyline or any kind of things that are more technical are one of my more things that I'm comfortable doing. I have a background that's more related in a more technical education. So storyline has always been right up my alley. So I'm really excited to see everyone today, to work with everyone today. And like I said, I mean, there's just a huge turnout. That's always so exciting. You have no clue. I'm getting so excited about this.
All right, thanks, Shawn. All right, so I am going to do a little bit of an introduction to kind of what we're going to be doing today. You will absolutely need the storyline file because that's the project we're going to work in. That's the file we're going to work in. There are also some optional fonts because I used more of a unique font for the project that when I built it, it's not required by any means. You will have to download the fonts, install them on your computer. Some people may not want to go through that trouble. It won't affect your ability to do what we do in the workshop today, though. We're not going to be typing anything, actually. We're literally just going to be going over triggers mostly. So even if you don't have the fonts, yours will look a little different than mine, but it will not affect your ability to follow along. All right. But if you haven't already, now is a fantastic time to click that big button and make sure at the very least you download the storyline file. Because if you would like to follow along with us, you will need that file. Okay. All right. So I already briefly mentioned it. And if you haven't seen the project yet, featured in the YouTube video, basically, what it's sort of it's considered like a supporting project. We like to recommend in the Dev and boot camp that people, instructional designers, especially those looking for work, it's good to have one kind of main project that really highlights and showcases your instructional design skills. But if you can have some supporting projects that show a variety of things that you can create and different formats and things like that of all different kinds, that's actually good too because it really shows off the versatility of your abilities. And so usually supporting projects are relatively small. They're just little snippets to really show the types of things you can create. And the project that we're going to create today is a unique way to use storyline to create a supporting project that isn't traditional e-learning. This project is more of a tool, all right. And again, if you haven't seen it, we'll dive in here in just a moment. But I just kind of want to set this up. Basically, we're gonna make this fun project that helps people choose a dog breed. If they're looking for a dog for a pet, there are so many different breeds of dogs. It can be overwhelming trying to decide which one is best for you. So this tool is designed to really streamline that process for people. So it solves a very real problem still. That's one key thing about any good supporting project. It should still show that you can solve real problems. Okay. So we're going to take that process of choosing a dog breed and streamline it down into something very quick and easy. And it will automatically curate a list of 3 dog breeds that would be good for somebody based on their preferences. Okay. Now, here's the thing. Uh, this, it may sound complicated. The thing about this project, though, in Storyline, it actually does not require very complicated storyline skills. It's the challenge comes in when when you're trying to figure out how to make everything work and where to go when people click on things. So that's what we're going to really focus on here. I wanted to design a project for you that did not require a lot of complicated programming, but it still requires somewhat of a complicated setup that we're going to have to make sure we organize it correctly in order to make it work. Okay? So, let's not waste any more time here. All right. So, one thing I want to point out first is I designed this specifically for mobile devices in a portrait orientation. That's another way that you can stand out with your supporting projects. If you create them in a unique format that most people don't, it really does show your versatility and your design skills. Okay. So that's why you can see this is very much designed in a portrait orientation to be used on a mobile device. So it says which breed is best for you. I'm going to click find out now and it goes through. And now basically it's going to present me with three questions. I'm just going to answer the three questions and it will curate a list of possible breeds for me. So let's say I want a medium sized dog. And let's say I live in a city. And then it says, are you willing to have a dog that's harder to train? Yes or no? Let's say, no, I want a dog that's easy to train. So I click no. And it's not really loading anything here. I just created this fun loading screen. And then here we go. It has automatically curated a list of three different breeds that would be good for me based on the answer choices that I made to those questions. And then when I'm here, you can see it shows the dog. It gives me the name. I've got a brief description. And then I can click these arrows to scroll through the three different breeds that it's recommending for me. Okay. And I can go either way. I can go left or right to scroll through. All right. And then if I click restart, I can choose again. Maybe I wasn't thrilled with those breeds. So maybe I'm like, well, maybe I'll tweak my choices a little bit. Maybe I want a smaller dog instead. I still live in a city, so I better choose that. But then maybe it's like, you know what? I'm willing to train this dog. So I'm going to click yes this time. And it gives me the loading screen. But now it's going to give me a completely different list of dogs to choose from. All right. But once again, these have all been consistently designed so I can scroll through the list of dog choices here. Okay. So you can see how it really takes the process of choosing a dog breed and really streamlines that so that people don't have to research many, many, many different breeds to find the breed that's best for them. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive in and look at some of the programming for this. In the tutorial you're about to see, we talk a lot about using triggers and variables in Storyline. If you're not familiar with those or are not super comfortable with them yet, you might want to check out the two videos linked in the description below. But once you're comfortable with those, let's go ahead and get on with it. All right, so first I'm going to have to close this one and open up my working copy here. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the title slide. And I've got my title slide here. Okay. Now, the first thing I want to show you is this. If you're wondering how you can get your slides set up to be in in a mobile portrait orientation, here's what we can do. If we go to the design tab, there's a slide size setup button over here on the far left. When you click that, you are able to choose whatever width and height you want. Now, I went full 1080p resolution here. You probably wouldn't need to go that high with the resolution, but I just really wanted to make sure that this was going to look nice and crisp and clear. All right. Now, a lot of times people would flip these around, right? You would expect the width to be 1920 and the height to be 1080. But I just flipped them so that it went from a landscape orientation to a portrait orientation. All right. And pretty much, I looked it up. I pretty much every mobile phone made within the last 10 years or so, at least, can display in 1080p. So this would look okay on just about any mobile device that most people would be using. All right. So that's how you can set up the slide size to be in that mobile portrait orientation if you'd like. Okay. Now the next slide is I'm not going to go through any programming with this. All this is, again, I really want to focus on more of the complicated programming. We may have time to come back to this, but I will briefly show you how this works. All right. So this is the first question. What size do you prefer? We've got text, we've got some buttons. These are just graphics. I'm not really going to go over that part because that's relatively basic storyline. You just want to get your graphics on there. But if we take a quick look at the programming, I have variables for each question. All right. I have a variable for size. I have a variable for location and I have a variable for whether or not you want an easy to train or a hard to train dog. So if you look at my triggers over here, I've got set the size variable. And in case you're not familiar, variables can hold information and that information can change. And then you can use that information later on in the project. And that's exactly what we are going to do. Okay. So you'll see what I've done here is this is the very first question. So I have a trigger that says set the size variable to blank when the timeline starts on this slide. So as soon as the slide loads, this variable is going to be set to blank. It's going to erase anything that was already there. And the same thing happens for location and train. We want to completely reset those variables because when people click the restart button, it's going to take them back here, and we want it to completely erase those answer choices so that they can choose new choices. All right. Let's see. All right, and but then look, based on the button that they choose, we are going to set the variable. So look what it says. Set the size variable to large when they click the large button. Set the size variable to medium when they click medium, and set the size variable to small when they click small. Now I chose to use text variables. So I typed in set it to small, the actual word small. You can obviously use whatever value you want there. I just decided to keep it consistent with what I'm using here, which is the size, small, medium, and large. All right. But then you'll notice that also once I click the button, it's going to jump to the next slide where I can answer the next question. Jump to slide 1.3 location choice. So once I've made my size choice, it needs to jump to the next question. However, this is an important factor, folks. Trigger order makes a difference. If I would have had the jump to slide trigger first, here, I'll just show you. If I move this up, if I've got my jump to slide trigger first, Storyline reads the triggers from top to bottom. So it would jump to the slide before it would ever set my variable. So we don't want that. You have to make sure it sets the variable first and then jumps to the slide. So I'm going to go ahead and move that now. Okay. And that's it. That's all there is to this slide. We've got our graphics. We've got the triggers to reset the variables. And then we've got triggers to set the variable based on the button we choose. And we have the trigger to jump to the next slide. Simple as that. All right. If I go to the next question, it's really just the same thing, but without the reset triggers. Remember these reset. Oops, I went back one too many. My variable reset triggers, we don't need those anymore. So on the next one, it literally just sets the variables and jumps to the next slide. Look, set location to city when they click city, set location to suburb when they click suburban. All right. And then of course we've got our jump to the next slide. And then we've got the third question. Same thing. It's the same thing. All right. Set the variable to easy or set the variable to hard and then jump to the next slide. Okay? That's all there is to it. So these question slides are relatively easy to set up. But when you're using variables, that does automatically add a layer of complexity there. All right. So now this is the loading screen that I created. Now this is not necessary. I could have had it immediately jump to the results, but I wanted to add a little bit of fun, like really make them feel like, oh, it's really curating my list of breeds for me. Okay. And in fact, this is where you're going to follow along with me, folks. We are going to create our first trigger together. So you're going to want to make sure that you are on slide 1.5, the loading slide. Okay. Now, first of all, you may remember in the preview, if I click on one of the dogs here and I go up to the animations tab, you can see that there is a motion path where it makes the dog move from one side of the screen to the other. Now, I used two different versions of the dog, so I can have one move one way and one move the other way. All right. And it only does it once for each direction, and then it moves on to the next slide. Okay. But take a look at our triggers over here. This is where you're going to direct the learner or user in this case. You're going to direct the user to whichever slide has the results for their answer choices. Okay? So let's look at an example here. We're going to jump to slide 1.6 and notice what I did here. Look at the name of the slide. This is a good strategy, folks. I would name your slides in a way that makes it very easy for you to know which is which. So I say jump to slide 1.6, which is small, city, and easy to train. If you answer those three choices, you're going to be directed to 1.6. Look at 1.7. This one is small city but hard to train. And then 1.8, small suburb easy. So we've got slides for every single possible combination. All right? Now you might be thinking, "Oh my gosh, that's going to take me forever to create." But wait till we get to one of those slides that we're really going to dive into where we program the result slide. You're going to find that it's actually super easy to just duplicate what you've created. Okay? So, let's examine one of these. Jump to slide 1.6 small city easy when the timeline ends. Now that's important because remember, I've got these animations. I want those animations to play through, and when they're done, that's when I want it to go to the result slide. Okay? So I need to say jump to the slide when the timeline ends. But hold on, we only want it to go to 1.6 if these variables have these values. Look what it says. If location is city and size is small, and train is easy. It needs all three of those variables to go to 1.6. If those variables were not set on those previous slides that we just looked at, if we did not set those variables to city, small, and easy, it will not go to slide 1.6. Okay. Also, notice here, in fact, I'll go into the trigger wizard. When we put in these conditions, it's very important that it says "and," because when you use the word "and," it means all 3 of these have to be true in order for it to actually go to 1.6. Okay? You'll notice when I click "and," I could change it to "or," but I don't want that because then it could be any combination of these things being true, but we don't want that. We need to make sure all 3 are true for it to actually jump to 1.6. Okay? All right. So that's what we're about to do now. We're going to create one of these. I have left out 1.9. If you happened to look down at these slides, you'll see it goes 1.7, 1.8, and then it jumps to 1.10. Okay? So what we want to do, if you're looking at mine, you probably need to scroll out here on the right, on the left, excuse me, where you can see story view. Way up here in the upper right is probably where 1.9 is. Okay. We're not actually going to go to 1.9. I'm just showing you that it's hanging out there because nothing's going to it yet. We need to create the trigger that will actually make it direct to 1.9. So let's do that now. Okay. So this is where you can follow along with me, folks. I'm going to start a new trigger. I'm on my 1.5 slide still. You should still be on 1.5. I'm going to click to create a new trigger. Let's do that. All right. Now, let's just go down what we need. We are going to jump to a slide. What slide is it? I'm going to click on next slide and I want to go to 1.9. That's the one that I have not set up yet. So I'm going to go to 1.9. But then remember, we want it to jump there when the timeline ends. So you're going to want to change the when to timeline ends on this slide. So that's still correct. When the timeline ends on this slide, we want to move ahead. But now we need to add those conditions in. So I'm going to click the if, and I can see my project variables here. Look, location, size, and train. I'm going to click on location, but now in blank, I need to type in the value. What is the location value for 1.9? Well, look, it kind of tells you up here. Look, that's why I named the slide this way. I've got a clue here. So I need this to be suburb. Just make sure you spell it correctly because the variables need to match. Okay. And then I'm going to click off of that one, but I'm not done. I have two more variables that I need to set, right? So I'm going to click in the if box down here, and now I'm going to do size. And the size value is going to be small. Whoops. And I almost spelled it wrong. And again, look at the slide name. It tells you it's small. All right. And then, but we have one more variable to add. This is going to be train. And the value is going to be hard to train. All right. So there we have it. We've got our trigger set up now. It's going to jump to slide 1.9 when the timeline ends, but only if these variables have these values. I'm going to click OK. And I've now created my trigger to go to 1.9. And now, if I scroll through here, now 1.9 is not hanging out up in the upper right here. They're all in a nice line. Because from my loading slide, in fact, I'll go ahead and click. You don't have to do this with me if you want. I'm going to click on story view because you can see from the loading slide, it needs to go to any one of these result slides down here. These are all the different combinations that we could possibly have. Okay. All right. And again, remember what I said, creating all these does not take as much time as you think it does because you can duplicate them. And I've set it up in a way where you could easily duplicate. Okay. All right. So let's do it. Let's start programming one of the result slides. So what I need you to do is I need you to find 1.9. Now it's probably hanging out over here on the far right. Okay. If I go back to the loading screen, if it's probably way over here on the right side of these result slides over here in the story view. So we need to go to 1.9. All right. Now, I'm going to start by looking at my layers because you want to be very intentional with the way you set this up. See, the challenge for this project is not really in the programming. It's getting everything set up so that it's going to work the way you want it to, and you can easily duplicate this for the other results. All right. So on my base layer, you'll see that all I've got here is the blue frame. I've got the indicator to let me know what combination this is. It says small, hard to train, suburb or rural. So that's my combination. I'm reminding the user of what they chose. And then I've got my restart button. Now there's a reason I don't show any dog results on the base layer. And that's because I want all of these things to show on every layer. But each of these other layers is going to have the information, but I won't need to include these objects because they're already on my base layer. All right. Okay. So let's see how this works. First of all, look at my trigger. It says show layer dog 1 when the timeline starts on the slide. That means as soon as this slide loads, it's going to show dog 1. Now again, I just told you why I didn't put dog 1 on the base layer, because I want the base layer objects to be only the things that appear on in all cases of this particular slide. No matter what dog is showing, these elements here are going to be displayed. Okay, and then I've got my restart jump to 1.2 when they click the restart button. And that's it. That's all I have on my base layer. I've got my objects, I've got my trigger to immediately show dog 1, and then I've got my trigger to jump to 1.2 if they click restart. Okay, so now we're gonna go to the dog 1 layer. Let's do that. All right. All right, so now I'm on dog 1, and I've got my beagle here. Now again, I put the image on there, I put the name on there, and I put the description on there. Those are just basic objects. We've got a picture, and we've got text and we've got text. Nothing fancy there. They're literally just basic objects. We've also introduced the arrows. Again, those are just images. There is nothing special about these. Okay. But because the base layer says immediately show dog one when the timeline starts on this slide, it's going to immediately show this. All right. In fact, please don't do this. Let me just show you just to save some time here. I'm going to preview this slide and I'll show you. The slide is going to load and it's going to immediately show the beagle. And there it is. Because I told it to immediately show the dog one layer. We got to start with one of the dogs, right? So the information for one of the dogs needs to be showing immediately. Okay. So now here's what we're going to do. This is where the fancy programming comes in. Because when they click the right arrow, I want this beagle to slide off to the right, but at the same time, I want the next dog to slide in from the left, right? I want both to happen at once. So let's go ahead and start doing that programming. Okay. Now, first of all, you don't have to include this, but I'm going to give you a kind of a guide on the order of the dogs. So I'm going to put a text box on here. And the way it works is oh, come on. There we go. It goes dog three, then dog two, then dog one. And I am going to make this much larger, probably even bigger than that. There we go. So this is the order. This is the order. So we're on dog one right now. Okay. We're on dog one. So let's start programming what happens when they click these arrows. Okay. Now, by the way, if you look at my layers, you already have these layers as well. We have a dog one enter from left. So it slides in from the left. We also have an enter from the right because remember, they can click the left or the right arrow. We need to program it so the dog can move left or right. But then we also have a dog one exit left and a dog one exit right. And these are the layers that we are about to program. Okay. We're going to start with dog one and then we will program these ones as well. I hope we have enough time. So I might pick up the pace here a little bit, folks. All right, let's do it. So let's start with the left arrow. All right. So let's do the left arrow. I'm going to start a trigger. Let me move my trigger wizard out of the way here. Okay. So here's what we need to do. When we click the left arrow, all right, that means that the dog one slides off to the left, right? Which means dog three needs to appear from the right. See, it cycles through, right? If I click the left arrow, one moves one spot to the left. Three is now at the end. So it now becomes the first one on the end here. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do show layer, dog three, enter from right. Because remember, if I click the left arrow, that means the dogs move from right to left. Left arrow is the movement. So I need dog three to enter from the right side. So I'm going to choose dog three, enter from right. Okay. Now, when does that happen? It's when the user clicks left arrow. And that's it. Okay. So when I click the left arrow, when I'm on the dog one layer, it's going to first make dog three enter from the right side. Okay. So I've got that one. But we're not done yet because we also need this dog to move off the stage, right? So here we go. I'm going to start another trigger. I'm going to show another layer. You can show multiple layers at once, folks. So I'm going to do show layer, dog one, exit left. Remember, we're clicking the left arrow. So this dog here needs to exit the stage to the left. So dog one, exit left. When the user clicks, and it's still left arrow. And then I'm going to click OK. So both of these are going to happen at the same time when I click the left arrow. Okay. Now, check this out, though, folks. This is very important. The only way they're both going to be able to show at once is if you do this. I'm on my dog one layer. I'm going to click the little cog wheel down here. This is my layer properties. By default, Storyline typically has this checkbox checked. Hide other slide layers. We don't want that. We want all of the layers to be visible at once if we need it to be. Okay, because look, I want 2 layers here to show at one time. That can't happen if this box is checked, so I'm gonna leave that unchecked, okay? Just make sure you do that too. If you do something like this, you're gonna wanna make sure you don't hide the other slide layers. All right. So let's tell you what, let's go ahead and do the right arrow. Let's program what happens when we click the right arrow. So here we go. I'm gonna start a new trigger. Here we go. Now again, now if I'm on number 1 and I click the right arrow, now it's gonna be number 2 is gonna enter from the left, right? Remember, the right arrow means movement to the right. So dog 2 has to enter from the left. So let's do show layer, dog 2 enter from left. When the user clicks, right arrow. Done. Okay. But then again, don't forget, we also need to make the beagle slide off to the right. Okay. Because we click the right arrow, we need the beagle to leave the stage to the right. So I'm going to do another trigger and we're going to do show layer, dog 1 exit right. When the user clicks, right arrow. Done. All right. So there you go, folks. I have now programmed it so it doesn't matter which arrow I click. The beagle will leave the stage in the appropriate direction and the next dog will enter the stage, right? Well, let's check it. Now, you don't have to preview yours if you don't want to. You can to see if it works. But let's check this out. By the way, I'm going to give you a hint. It's not going to work right and you'll see why. Okay, so here we go. Now watch what happens. I'm going to click the right arrow. Uh-oh. Did you see it? The beagle left, but another copy of the beagle is there. Let me do it again. When I click the right arrow, a copy of the beagle will leave, but another copy is there. Well, that's not good. Let's figure out why. Check this out, folks. Here's the problem. Look at what layer we are on. We are on the dog 1 layer. That means this dog is there permanently. I never told this dog to leave at all. All I did was say, "Hey, show the layer that makes the dog move away." All right. So here's what we need to do. We need to add 2 more triggers. Here's what we do. Go ahead and add a trigger. We're going to do hide layer, this layer, when the user clicks left arrow. So not only do we want the movement layers to show, we also need to hide this layer. Okay. So this one is going to disappear to allow the movement layers to take over. All right. So look, hide layer this layer when the user clicks left arrow. Bam. Got it. Let's do one more. Hide layer this layer when the user clicks right arrow. Because it doesn't matter which arrow they click, we need this layer to disappear. All right. There we have it. And that should do it then, folks. We should have everything set up. I'm going to preview this slide and it should work. I should be able to go any direction, but only on the first dog so far. Well, actually, no, I've already programmed dogs 2 and 3. So now watch what happens. When I click the right arrow, this will disappear. This one will disappear. Another copy of the beagle that's on the exit layer that will slide off and a new dog will appear. Here I go. And there it goes. Okay. All right. Now the left, I don't have this programmed yet. Okay. All right. But now, oh, actually, let me preview it again. Let's test the left arrow. Let's test the left. Remember, we've only done this for dog one, which is the beagle. So I tested my right arrow. Does my left arrow work? Yes, it does. There you go. It's working. All right. Real quick, I see. Yes, they are on motion pads on the enter layers. We'll take a look at that here actually right now. Okay. All right. So we are done with the dog one layer. That is it almost serves as the base layer because this is the very first dog that we see. And then we've got the programming. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to copy my little guide here, my 3, 2, 1. I'm going to copy this. Now let's go ahead and go to the dog one enter from left. Let's go there. Let's go to dog one, enter from left. Remember, this is the one that enters when somebody clicks a right arrow, right? When I click the right arrow on one of the dogs, the beagle will appear. All right. Now, this is where it can get a little confusing. Remember, the dog one layer was just a starting point. Once we leave the dog one layer, we will never come back to that because we're always going to either show the layers or the exit layers. We will never return to the dog one layer because that's just a starting. Okay, so let's go to enter from left. All right, now you'll notice somebody asked this. If I click on the dog and I go up to animations, you can see the motion path. That's what creates remember how I said show layer, dog one, enter from left? Well, as soon as that layer shows, the movement happens because of the motion path. Now, again, I don't really want to get into motion paths because I want to make sure we get finished with the programming here. But that's all it is. It's a basic motion path that has the dog start off stage and end up in the spot that I need it. Okay. And that's why we have this trigger here. This trigger here, it just says move the dog along the motion path when the timeline starts. That's it. Okay. Now let me paste my guide here. Okay. So now let's go through. Let's do the same thing and let's figure out, well, what happens when we do the left and right? Guess what, folks? Is it any different than what we've already done? I'm still on the beagle, right? I'm still on the beagle. It's just I would have gotten here from one of the other dogs, right? Instead of starting here, this layer would have shown when I clicked the arrow on one of the other dog layers, right? Guess what? The triggers are done for us. Look what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back to the dog one layer. I'm going to click on my very first trigger. I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to hold shift and click on my last trigger. This will highlight all of the triggers. I'm going to copy them. I'm going to use the button up here for copy. I'm going to go to dog one, enter from left, and I'm going to paste. All right. Now you will notice, yes, we do have a little bit of work to do because it doesn't know what object we're clicking on. It did not take that with us. Okay. But look, that's all I have to do. All I have to do now is change this. Now you have to be careful though. When the dog enters from the left, that means we clicked the right arrow. So I'm going to do right arrow. If the dog exits right, that means right arrow. And the hide layer, remember for the hide layer, we're going to need both left and right. So I'm going to go ahead and do right. Now all of these should be left arrow, right? If a dog enters from the right, that means we clicked the left arrow. So I'm going to do left arrow. If the dog exits to the left, that's a left arrow. And then my hide layer, I need a left arrow one for that. Done. That's it. It's essentially the same as dog one because it's still the beagle. Okay. But we needed to do that programming because if we were to get here from one of the other dogs, we need the programming to say, well, what happens when we go left and right? Okay. Now, guess what? Same thing here. Let's go to the dog one enter from right layer. Let's go to that one. Paste. You've already copied the triggers. Let's just paste them again. And all we have to do is update these unassigned. So let's do it. If the dog enters from the left, that's a right arrow. If the dog exits right, that's a right arrow. And then, of course, hide layer, that's going to be a right arrow for the first one. Then, if the dog enters from the right, that's a left arrow. If they exit left, that's a left arrow. And then hide layer, left arrow. Done. That layer is now programmed. All right. So now let's do the exit layers. They are a little bit different. Okay. So let's go to dog one exit left. All right. Now, the thing to remember here is I want you to notice that the dog information is always on the enter layers. Enter from left, enter from right. The information is always on the enter layers. And because the information on theirs is on the enter layers, that's where we have our interactivity, the left and right arrows. Okay. We don't need any interactivity on the exit layers because the exit layer is just to literally take the dog that we have and slide it off screen. Okay. So the only thing we need to do here is hide this layer when it's done. Look, I've already got my motion path here. Move the dog along exit left when they click when the timeline starts because this is the exit left layer. So as soon as they click exit left, it's gonna make move the dog along that motion path to exit. All I need to do is hide this layer when it's done. So look, I'm just gonna create a trigger, hide layer, this layer when the timeline ends on this layer. Done. That's it. Remember, the exit animation is just to take the current dog and slide it off screen. We don't need any interactivity there. The interactivity is going to be on the enter layers, I should say. Okay, let's do the same thing for dog one exit right. I'm just going to create a trigger and do hide layer, this layer when the timeline ends. Look, it remembers. It remembers the trigger that I just created. Click OK, and I'm done. You have now just programmed all of the layers for dog one. We did the intro layer that shows the dog to start with. We programmed the two enter layers depending on which way it moves, and we programmed the two exit layers depending on which way it moves. Okay? All right. Now, I have already programmed all of the other layers for you. If you wanted to practice, you certainly could erase the triggers and practice, but here's what I wanna show you. This is why I said this can be way faster than you may think. Notice how I named these layers. I didn't name it Beagle and what is it? Dachshund, Beagle, Dachshund, and Miniature Akita. Notice I didn't name these layers with the dog name. I just did 1, 2, and 3. And that's because that's going to allow me to basically just duplicate these and change the numbers. I don't have to change names or anything. And guess what? When I'm done programming this whole slide, I can just duplicate the slide and all I have to update is the dog picture and the dog name and the dog description. I won't have to do any triggers at all. Once you've designed one of these slides, now, granted, creating this for this slide the first time can take a little bit of time. But as soon as I'm done, I mean, look, now you don't have to do this, folks, but look, when I go to another one, guess what it is? Look, dog one, dog one, dog. It's all the exact same stuff. The only thing that changes is the dog picture. Oh, let me do an enter. The dog picture, the name, and the description. That's it. You won't have to do any triggers at all. All right. So let me go back to 1.9 because I want to show you something here. Because when you're first setting this up and you don't have the dog two layers, you're going to have to create those. Okay, so let's take a look. Let's go to dog two, enter from left. Now let me paste oops, I'm sorry, I didn't want to do that. I need to go back and get my guide here. This reminds me of the order. So let me go to dog two, enter from left. There it is. Okay. So remember, we are on dog two. We are on dog two. Now you'll notice the triggers are exactly the same, but we will need to change which dog appears or exits. See how it says dog one and dog two? You will need to change those because it's different. Now that I'm on dog two, let's take a look. So I'm on dog two, enter from left. Let's look at these triggers. Let's look at the left arrow. Look what it says. When I do the left arrow, that means the dachshund moves to the left. So that means number two moves to the left, which takes number one and moves it here, right? Okay. Remember, we're doing the left arrow. That means the dogs move one spot to the left. If I'm on number two, this is going to move to this spot. One moves to the spot that I'm on, and three will come back over to here. So that's why it says when then they click the left arrow, this time it's going to be show layer dog one, enter from left because it's now dog one that moves to the left. Now, of course, I'm on dog two. So dog two exits to the left and then we hide the layer. But now what happens when we click the right arrow? Well, if we're, which is, we just do the opposite, right? If number two moves to the right, that means number three is going to enter. That's what it says here. Dog three, enter from left. Dog two is going to exit right. And then we hide the layer. But again, you could copy and paste the triggers and just change those pieces and you're done. It's so fast. If you name these things in a way that they can be reused, it makes it so much faster. Okay? Now I could go enter from right. It's the same thing, folks. It's all exactly the same. The only thing you need to be mindful of is which dog is entering and leaving and which direction. That's it. All right? Okay, let me take I see why do we need to paste the triggers to each layer? Creating the triggers on dog one is not enough. Well, because these are all separate layers. Now, if you duplicated the layer, the triggers would be all there. You could do that. You could remember, these normally wouldn't be here. I've already given them to you, right? I created the dog one and did those triggers, right? But as soon as I create a dog one enter from left, normally it would be blank. See, watch, if I start a new layer, I got no triggers there. So I would need to copy and paste here. All right. Copy and paste the triggers so that on this new layer, I could have it do what I want. Again, the thing is here, I've already given you these so that you have a working project here. But again, folks, guess what? It's all the same stuff. Once you've got this 1.9 slide completed, you could duplicate the slide and just change the content, change the dog pictures and change them. And that's it. That's all you got to do. Okay. Someone says base layer triggers. There's really hardly anything here. Look, it's just because remember the base layer has the frame on it, and then the category that I'm on based on my answer choices and a restart button. That's all that's on the base layer. And then so what I need to do first is I need to show the dog one layer right away because I don't want it to be blank to start with, right? I want one of the dogs to appear immediately. Okay. I don't think it's a good user experience to have it show up blank and force them to click one of the arrows to see one of the dogs. That's where this dog one layer, it kind of takes the place of the base layer, but we need a separate one so that we can keep just the objects that appear on every layer on the base layer. Okay. All right. So again, folks, we are running short on time here. I want to start kind of wrapping this up. But again, if you set this up the right way, like I've done here, you can duplicate things very easily and just just tweak the triggers to match what you need. But you can see that it takes some setup initially to really get this squared away. But I hope you realized, folks, I got no fancy programming here. It's literally show layer, hide layer. You just have to know which layer needs to show and hide. Yes, we do have a little bit of fancy stuff with the motion paths, but motion paths aren't too difficult to add. You can learn how to do those pretty easily if you don't know how to do those. There is not really much fancy programming at all, but it's the setup that makes it look like it's complicated and really sophisticated. Okay? Can you repeat why you can't put the arrows on the base layer? That's a good question. I don't think I mentioned that. Here's why. You don't want the arrows on the base layer because think about it. The arrows do different things depending on which layer you're on. If they were on the base layer, I could only now you could program them differently, but it's very complicated. I thought about doing that at first, but trust me, to get it because you would need to do very complicated if the state of this is this, then make it go here when they click the arrow. If the state of this is this, then make it go. If there is only one set of arrows, you need to do very complicated programming to get it to do what you want it to do. That's why I said, you know what? I'm just going to put the arrows on each layer because then I can control them to do what I want them to do individually for each layer. All right. Thanks for joining me today. Again, there will be a replay if you kind of got lost. One other thing we recommend, remember, this is about supporting projects, right? A project like this is a really good supporting project for your portfolio. If you'd like to look at other examples of really good supporting projects, I would recommend that you go to, and I think you're going to be redirected automatically when the session ends here. But, if you go to the showcase page on Devlin's website, we've got, fantastic portfolios from graduated boot campers or boot campers and some of them who have landed roles already. Many of them have landed roles. Some of them are recently graduated boot campers that just really created top-notch work. If you go look at their, portfolios, a lot of them have supporting projects. You can get more inspiration for your own supporting projects. All right. Well, folks, we ended just right on time. So, again, thank you very much for joining me. I hope you found this fun and helpful and you got inspired to create something different in Storyline than a typical e learning project. So, okay. All right. So, yeah, I think we'll go ahead and call it. Thanks for joining me today, folks. We'll see you. Bye bye.